Good evening. My name is Dane A. It's my pleasure to serve as Alumni Director here at Grace College. And tonight is our first of a variety of activities leading up to homecoming weekend. I get to introduce to you all my former professor, my friend, a face that is very familiar to most of you, Dr. DeYoung.
Well, thank you, Denny. Hey, welcome everybody. Where we are is the upper floor of the campus science complex. And this little corner is called a Creation Cove. Of course, this is all brand new, these facilities, and this area is used for students to relax, to do some studies. We have a number of groups that come through here, scout groups and such, kind of a Bible Science Creation Center. We have a lot of fun up here. I thought for a little while here for our session, we would look at some very simple activities that all illustrate the way God set up this whole creation for us. So I'm going to look at a number of different topics, and these are, again, demonstrations that can be done even right in the kitchen. Pretty low-level stuff, but very meaningful. So first of all, let's think for a little bit about water. Don't we take water for granted? I mean, you open the faucet and it just better be there. And yet, the closer we look at water, it has interesting properties. There are whole books written on the physical nature of water and just how special it is. Just to think about one property here, I brought some water along in this beaker, and I also have a sandwich bag. Now, I think a bag like this will hold water, at least for a little while, so let me kind of fill it up. And what I intend to do now is try to set this bag on fire. Sounds dangerous, I know, but that's science activities for you. So let me get a candle going here so that I can have a steady flame. And now you know that if you have a plastic bag and you set it on fire, it'll melt, the person could hurt themselves. But we have water in this bag. So let's try this activity here. Here's the flame, and here's the bag. I'll keep it on there for a few moments. Oh, it's starting to turn black on the bottom. The thing is, it's the water that holds lots of heat, more than any other common chemical we know, and so it's soaking up the heat and protecting the bag. In fact, I tried this at home in the kitchen, and the water came to a boil. You could make hot chocolate or tea this way. Now, a dry bag, you'd have trouble, but when there's water, it's protected. Interesting property of water called heat capacity. In fact, folks, this is why we can live on planet Earth, because all the oceans, the lakes, they soak up the heat from the sun during the day so it doesn't get too hot, and they release that heat at night so it doesn't get too cold. We've got lots of water on Earth protecting us, making life possible here. So anyway, that's just a quick little experiment showing an interesting property of water. The more I look at water, just the more fascinating it is. Let me do another really simple one involving water. Got another water supply here. And I also have just some ice cubes. Now this is almost too simple, but it's worth thinking about. Of course, the idea is that ice cubes float. You don't have to write that down, we all know that. And yet most solid materials would sink in water, you know, whether it's metal, plastic, or whatever. It's this property of water that when it freezes, the ice expands, and so it's less dense in the water, and so it floats. And so there it is, of course, ice floats. This is important to us. What if ice acted like everything else and sank to the bottom? Well, then a place like Winona Lake, during the wintertime, the ice would sink, and it would freeze from the bottom up, and the whole lake would freeze solid. I think that'd be hard on the fish. In fact, the oceans would freeze solid as well, and the whole Earth would go into a permanent ice age, and life would be in big trouble. So it's just another interesting property that ice is less dense and floats. We take it for granted, but it's another unique property of that chemical H2O water. So we're looking at a few simple activities here today. They're all kind of fun and just showing the details of creation. Let me switch from water for just a minute and think about light. Another thing that's all around us, whether it's sunlight or flashlight. In fact, I brought a flashlight along here. Now, you know, white light has ingredients to it. It has colors, and it's possible to dissect a white light into its colors. Of course, Isaac Newton did this long ago, and maybe I could just try this on the wall here. This little plate that I have is kind of similar to a prism. So here's what our flashlight looks like. That's an interesting beam. And if I put this gradient in the way here, oh, there it is, I can get the rainbow to show up. So we are now dissecting the light into its component colors. And there it is all the way from red through violet. I can't make a rainbow like shows up in a beautiful way outdoors, but this gives a glimpse of the colors that are actually within light. You know, if you think about this, when God says, let there be light on day one, he could have just made white and gray so we could see, but he didn't stop there. He made all these beautiful colors that we have. I think it shows that God's an artist. And by the way, there's different kinds of light. There's ultraviolet and X-rays and gamma rays and infrared. There's lots of light properties that we don't even understand very well. All of creation is just amazing and fascinating to look at. Well, you know, thinking of colors and a rainbow, let's just turn to the weather for a minute. The weather fronts move back and forth across the country. And one thing that really controls what our weather is like is the air pressure. Now, these big air masses, sometimes extra heavy air pressure, sometimes a little bit less, and it's all breathable, but the air pressure really controls clear skies, cloudy skies. So I thought maybe for a few minutes we could see whether the air pressure is working today. Now, this is invisible, a little bit hard to think about, so we'll try to make something we can see. What I have here is a jar. I think this had apple juice in it, and it's long gone. It was good for breakfast. And speaking of breakfast, I also have here a hard-boiled egg. My wife Sally peeled it, so it's all ready to go here. Now this egg, yes, it's too large to fit in the jar. Do you suppose that we can get the air pressure, all this air stacked above us, to push the egg into the jar? It's not going to happen right now because there's air inside the jar pushing back, so we need to eliminate some of the air that's in the jar. And you can do that by lighting a little flame. Got to be careful here, but we can try that. Let me set this down on the table. And I found out if you ignite a little bit of cotton here, there's no smoke or odor. And so what I'm going to do is put this flaming cotton inside the jar and then replace the egg. Sometimes this demonstration works, sometimes it doesn't, so we'll find out. Now again, I need the flame, put it in the jar, and then replace the egg. So let's see if this will behave for us during our little activity time here. Let's go for it. It's jumping around a little bit. Whoa, it did work. The egg kind of fought back for a little while, but in it went. It's a demonstration that all this weight of this air above us, acting all the time. Now this doesn't happen to us. We don't collapse like that because we have air in our lungs. We're kind of in equilibrium, but that made the difference. Now, if you're watching this little demonstration that we're looking at, you might wonder, how do I get this egg back out of here? And if you want to try this at home, it's kind of fun to do. Sometimes you can retrieve the egg. What you need to do is get the egg into the neck of the jar and then kind of get air back in the jar. Let me just try this for a minute. So let me get this up in the front here. And I need to get a puff of air in here. So let's see if it'll work. Wait a minute, it's thinking about it. That's too slow. Let me try that again. Well, the clock is running. That egg is slowly moving. It's going to make it. Come on. Nope, in it goes. So we've retrieved the egg. It doesn't look so delicious anymore. Just a little trick here on air pressure. Kind of fun to think about how God's running the whole weather system. Let me change the topic here for a little bit. There's a word that's big in science these days called biomimicry. Now, bio would be the living world, and then to mimic is to copy, to make use of something. And here's an example. You take a feather. I think this was actually a duck feather that's been dyed. And you can take a feather and you can pull on the side and kind of pull it apart. You can destroy it. When it gets real quiet, you can even hear a click when you do that. And after you've pulled it down, birds do this when they're preening their feathers, you can pull back and you can get it to reattach again, and then you can recycle it. If you look at this feather with a magnifying glass, what you'll see are there are hundreds of little hooks, and they're kind of flexible, and they grab each other or they can let loose. And so there's an interesting attachment going on there. And you know, when you think about this kind of reminds us of something. It's a fastener that kids have on their shoes and jackets. It starts with a V. I'm thinking Velcro. Well, an Englishman didn't invent Velcro. He discovered it already existing in nature. It's right here. This is a Velcro that God put in bird feathers. You can also find it in cockleburs out in the woods that'll stick to your pant leg. Biomimicry, looking at something in nature like a feather and then coming up with the idea of Velcro, a useful product. There's hundreds of examples like this, and this is where engineers, scientists, inventors are looking these days at nature for new ideas. I suggest that God has placed thousands of ideas like this in the world for us to find, to solve problems, come up with new ideas, and most of these new ideas have not been found yet. So that's a whole new paradigm for science, discovering the secrets that God put there. Another example of biomimicry, which has been very useful. Indiana corn. We have found out that when a corn shoot starts to grow in the spring, on a sunny day, sunlight goes right down through the stem of the corn and goes underground. And if you could dig the soil out of the way, there's light down in the soil. This is how corn grows. It's making use of solar energy, along with the chemicals and the minerals that are in the soil as well. So what I'm describing is something called fiber optics. Corn has it, as the light is focused down through the corn underground. Now, fiber optics is very popular these days. It's replacing metal wires, and our email seems to travel through fiber optics as well. So, Dane Duncan, could you come over here and help us a minute, head of our alumni, just to try this out? Let me give you this end over here. And we've got some fiber optics. Looks like it's about 30, 40 feet long. And I also have a light here. This is one of these green lasers. And I'm going to shine it in this end and see if we can get the light to conduct all the way through the other end. So if you can just hold that where we can see that, Denny. And we'll get this thing going here. And how about, are we lighting up? You know, if this wire was strung clear across the campus, we could get the light to come out that end. Clear across Kosciuszko County, the light would come out that end. If it's good fiber optics, 100% of the light goes on through. So this is being much studied, coming up with different kinds of fiber optics. And what's one thing that they're studying to improve this? Indiana corn, where fiber optics has been around since day 3 when God made the plants. Another biomimicry. Thank you, Denny. Good work. You're a great assistant. These ideas of biomimicry go on and on. It's just a delightful thing to think about. Here's another quick one. In the springtime, when the trees are growing, around here we have what's called a beech tree. They're big all around the Midwest. And the way the beech tree grows, its leaf is fully formed, but it's all folded up in a pod. And then on one day, the pod splits and the whole leaf just pops out and you see it all at once. And I made a little model to kind of demonstrate how it works. This is the economy-sized beech leaf, and it's all folded up in a pod. And then one day it splits and the whole leaf. My demonstration is about worn out here, but you get the idea. Interesting folding mechanism, kind of reminds you of an accordion or something like that. It folds up and it comes apart. So once again, the specialists have looked at nature and have thought, interesting design, what can we do with this? What is an object that needs to be very compact, because you got to get it somewhere, but then when it arrives, you want to open it up? How about the space age? How about solar panels? You got to fold them all up in the rocket to get them up into orbit. And once they get up there, then you can spring it open. So NASA is studying beech leaves to see how to fold up their solar arrays to get them into orbit. Endless examples of nature waiting for us to make use of. We're now talking about design and nature, and just is just a fascinating topic. Maybe not biomimicry, but I just happen to have a shell here with an interesting spiral on it. You remember how this goes? There's all kinds of math involved in the spiral of a shell. There's what's called the Fibonacci numbers. There's lots of math there. Anyway, spirals are very common in nature. Shells have them. A vine will have them when they're kind of curling up a trellis in your yard. And even on a big scale, galaxies have a spiral shape. It's like the Creator kind of enjoys this spiral form, and we find it all around us in nature, even in seashells. Hey, just to finish things up here, since I was talking about space and galaxies, something we're looking forward to here on campus, and you can as well. Some of you recall an eclipse of the sun that we had a couple of years ago in the Midwest. And I'm bringing this up just because we have this beautiful moon behind us here on this mural here in our Creation Cove. And there's going to be another solar eclipse in the year 2024, just 4 years from now. And that the sun will get covered in the middle of the day for about 3 minutes, and it'll get dark and the stars will come out. And it's going right through Indiana. In fact, right through Indianapolis. It'll be a little bit south of our campus, but it's in our part of the world. And I just wanted to mention this because this is very rare. The next one will be 80 years from now. So we're looking forward to 2024 for this wonderful eclipse, and I'm sure on campus here we'll be out there watching it. It's just one of the many interesting things in nature. Hey, hope you enjoyed all our little demonstrations here. They go on, and we're all here at Grace trying to promote Bible, science, God's Word, and enjoying all parts of His creation. Thank you, folks. Thanks for listening.